So like, when did you first realize that you needed to look at hiring an account manager? Like that needed to be your next person. When was the light bulb moment?
So it was when I couldn't do anything else to grow. Like I had to stop taking on clients, and was all I was doing was account managing. At that point, I had brought on somebody to help run ads and somebody to kind of help do more of the technical and the SEO and like stuff like that. And so I had those pieces taken off my plate, but then I found myself to where I wasn't able to expand and grow the clientele base. I was solely just focusing on making sure clients are happy. Clients were contacting me, and it was just that's what I was doing. I was literally the account manager. And so I realized at that point, like if I was going to grow the business and if I was going to get myself out of the business, that that was the next step that had to happen. So because once I get out of the account management, I envision myself, okay, now I can actually grow the business, bring on more clientele, make sure the staff is all full and happy and stuff like that. And then I can bring in a sales guy that not only can help a little bit with account management, but can really take on the role of sales and growing the business per se. And so I was almost thinking of, as like a contractor, if you're building a house, you're going to subcontract, you're going to get somebody to do the landscaping, you're going to get somebody to do the framing, you're going to get somebody to, put on the roof and stuff like that. Right. And so one of my mentors kind of taught me that principle a little bit. And so before starting, I already kind of had a vision of like, okay, these are the pieces that I kind of need to get me out of the business. And so that was just the piece that I had run into. It was like very apparent because of the other roles I had already filled. It was like, okay, this is it. I got to bring on somebody to handle these, and I got to pray that they freaking care as much as I do. So,
And that's something, that little nugget right there, guys that are listening, he planned ahead. Like he looked at what his org chart was going to be and he planned for getting himself out of the business. Like I see a lot of people, they don't really do that. They get so focused on just making the business work that they don't think about like, well, what about when I don't want to work in it all the time anymore? They don't plan ahead for that. And that process can take, years, to get there. So like, did you do anything differently or change the way you manage clients to prepare for hiring this person?
so no, what I had done is I would just normally working with the clients, and then once I found the person that was going to take the role, I started integrating them into the clients. That's when I actually went to the clients and I introduced them to the account manager. And I'm like, hey, I'm still here. And I did get some feedback from, some other mentors and stuff like Dave Albano and some others to kind of help me and coach me in the transition of that. But that's, essentially what I did. And then once I started transitioning them to a couple clients, and I had them actually write their own SOP as well. Because this is the first time that anybody's ever done this. And I'm like, I can tell you all the stuff that I do, but you're not even going to be able to do half of what I'm going to be able to do, because like I have like 10 years worth of experience in this field, kind of doing these tasks. Like I've been a web developer. I've been the media buyer. I've been the SEO expert. I've been an account manager. I've filled every single one of these roles. So there's no way I'm going to be able to teach that to somebody that's just kind of getting into the game, so to speak. And so that's one thing that I had to realize. And so what I did, long story short here, once I started introducing them to the clients, I just told the clients that I'm still here, but this is going to be your main point of contact. And if you need anything, get with Bailey, and then she will get with whoever needs to fulfill or get the job done, right? And so that kind of applied to them. They're like, hey, I'm still here in the background. I'm still in the emails. They're still being CC'd. I'm still in the loop on what's going on. If I need to jump in, I'll jump in, but I'm going to let her kind of take the reins from here, so that I can go and do other things that I need to do to make the business more efficient and stuff. And most of the business owners and everybody was like, oh, cool. They were actually excited. It was kind of a unique thing, I thought, because then I thought saw a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be interesting and stuff. But they're actually excited for me to be like, wow, you're growing. like, this is crazy. This is kind of cool. And so they kind of got into the story a little bit, and that maybe that's, a good thing that, I'm like an open book when it comes to clients and stuff. I'm probably one of the most transparent people out there as far as like what's going on in the business, what's going on in, life in general. I just kind of have that relationship, and I try to establish that personal relationship. But yeah, so as that transition happened, it was seamless.
Yeah. Well, that speaks volumes to you as an agency too, that, your clients have utter faith in the people that you're, putting in your place, and excitement for you that you're moving up in that level. Like, you get that when you've built relationships, you've invested in building relationships with your clients. And that makes it even harder to put somebody else in your shoes, but really cool at the same time.
It was, man. I was a stress, and it took me a minute. Like, I gave her a couple of accounts, and I was like, I don't know, these other bigger accounts, some of these accounts are spending a lot of money, with us every single month. And so it's like, something bad happens, this could be bad. Like, they could leave us, and, I'm going through all the what ifs and all that kind of stuff, which enabled me to, like, it disabled me to fully transition, and so it took me a few weeks. I think it was like three or 4 weeks before my project manager, who was my first hire, Rachel, she was like, you have to freaking give her everything and let her sink or swim. And so that's when I was like, you know what? It just rang true to me. It was like, no, you're right. You're 100% right. And so that's what I did. I was like, okay, Bailey, here's the clients. Let me know if you CC me and everything, but
It sounds like you really went through the steps to set her up for success too, though. I mean, you went through the effort of making SOPs. You went through the effort of understanding that she's not fully replacing you, that there's only pieces she could do to start with, introducing her to the clients, introducing her to the team. Like, sounds like you really took a lot of steps to make sure that, you weren't just throwing her in to sink or swim without a life raft.
Right. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it for sure.
Like,
although my perspective, I did feel that way. I was like, oh, well, here we go.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like, I've done that myself. Even when you bring on like your first project managers and they start overseeing stuff, and you have to just trust that they've got it. And it's hard bringing on those first hires and letting that go. It's like, it's right up there with when I gave my teenager the keys and let her drive the car for the first time without me in it.
Yeah.
It's a really similar feeling, Oh man. So, like, how did you go about finding this person? We've talked about how pivotal of a role this is. Like, how did you find someone that you're even confident bringing on?
So, in where I live, it's a smaller town, St. George, Utah. So I have a college that just became a university a few years ago. And so I've actually developed a relationship with some of the professors and some of the deans over the schoolhouses and stuff over there. And so every semester I actually go over there and give a presentation as far as just a cool thing that we're doing in the agency and the real world for marketing. And so just developing those relationships, I go to them. I've been able to go to them and be like, hey, I'm looking for this particular role. Would you recommend anybody, that you've had experience with, that you'd feel comfortable that they would do a good job? So that's been like a huge thing for me, as far as finding people. Everybody that I've gotten through that process has been amazing. They've ended up being like amazing at stuff. And so like my media buyer and stuff like that, like, I'm just truly blessed that I've been able to find awesome people.
Do you have to do any internal training when you get them that way? Because I know I've talked to people that get people from universities, and it's been a mixed bag. Now, some of them aren't doing like what you do. They're not cultivating relationships at the universities. They're just going and saying, hey, do you have anybody? And sometimes they get a lot of people that think they know what they're doing, but don't really know what they're doing, especially in the marketing world. And they kind of have to untrain them before they can train them. Like, what's your experience been with that?
So before I bring anybody on and actually start paying them, I require that they go through, depending on their role, they'll go through 2 or 3 of the courses through Digital Marketer. So if they're a media buyer, I'll have them go through, the conversion funnel mastery course, and then the paid traffic course. And then if they're going to run emails, obviously it would be the same, like, conversion funnel, but then you're going to be in the direct response copywriting and stuff. So it just depends on the role and stuff, but that's kind of essentially everybody has to go through at least one, between 1 and 3 trainings before I even start paying them. And so it's a matter of, and that's kind of some of the hoops I make them go through, to make sure that they are open-minded, they can learn, they can, they're motivated, that they want to actually do this, because digital marketing in general is hard. Like, it's probably one of the most difficult things in my mind. And everything revolves, it's like everything in business seems to revolve around it. Everybody, touts that, like, oh, nothing happens until a sale is made. And I agree. My two people that are doing the tactical stuff, they wouldn't be doing anything if sales weren't made, right? But what enables sales to happen? Well, it's marketing. And so that sets up the conversation for the sale to happen. And so I think that a lot of people don't realize that. And when it comes to, I'm a certified partner with digital marketer, and since becoming a partner, like, I've learned the broader aspect, of the customer journey when we're talking, like, but literally, like, as I'm working with clients more in that process and developing their customer journey and doing all of that, there's a lot of internal things that we actually change in order for the marketing and the sales to occur.
Yep.
Which is kind of a unique thing, I think. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. And so, we come up with this awesome offer and this awesome experience that needs to happen after they make that purchase. And it's like the last client I'd taken through, like, this process, like, we ended up having to completely change packaging. We had to completely change the way that, they're reaching out to clients. Their shipping process changed. The way they ship stuff changed because of the way we had to do marketing, like, or the strategy that we put together for the marketing. So it's an interesting thing that a lot of people I don't think realize that. And as more and more I talk about this stuff to business owners and people that we're just helping in general, it's like, what? That's crazy. They don't think about it that way. They just think that sales is, where it's at. And, and I just, yesterday I had a discovery session with somebody yesterday, and that was an eye-opening thing for me, because he literally has been in business for 20 years and he couldn't tell me the difference between, he didn't know the difference between marketing and sales. He thought they were just all the same, and it's different. And I'm like, well, if we get into this, like, there's possibility that, a lot of your internal processes are going to change. We're going to likely change the way some of your departments work as a whole in order for what strategy we put together for it to work. And he was like, it was mind-blowing to him, and like, he didn't understand it.
Yep. And
so, which is, I don't know, it's just an education that, it's a process of education that we have to kind of go through piece by piece. As we put the pieces together, it makes more sense, right? But that's where it's like, yeah, marketing is difficult because it's all encompassing. Everything revolves around it. The way you sell stuff will revolve around what you do for marketing, like, or vice versa, however I said that. But like, your internal processes, kind of coincide with marketing that you're doing, how you're positioning yourself as a company.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Like, how is this, like, impacting the rest of your team? I mean, I think it's been over a month since you made this change now. Like, how's it going?
The teams, like, they love it, and it's actually given them, I think, more confidence in me as, like, the leader, so to speak, that I'm able to make, decisions for the company to grow, because that enables them to be like, okay, like, I have a secure job. Like
I haven't thought about it from that perspective. I like that.
Yeah.
Job security for the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if I'm growing the team, and I'm everybody kind of has their own role, so to speak. The agency I used to work for, I was the the media buyer. I was the SEO guy. I was one of the programmers. I was an account manager. I was putting together proposals, for for the sales to happen. I was actively in sales conversations to close it because my boss, so to speak, couldn't speak at the level that I could about certain tactical things, like with digital marketing, with running ads, for example. Like, what's the strategy? Like, he couldn't explain that. So I had to go in and actually explain it, which sold the client on the process. And it was one thing that just burned me out fast. And I'm like, why am I doing this and only getting like a salary? I could be building my own business, and I could be still doing all this stuff, but I'm actually building an asset for myself instead of building someone else an asset. That's like something I walk through. But if I was, versus working for a company that's like, hey, all you're going to do is you're going to do digital ads, you're going to help run email campaigns, so they can focus and perfect that process, right? They can get really, really good at those few things. And then, they coincide with like, okay, this is the account manager, and they're only going to do account management, so to speak. But they, work together and they communicate and stuff. And then the more I can kind of step out, that's what gives them confidence that, it's like job security for them. And it's really, because they're in on the whole process anyways. Like, the clients, the stuff I take clients through, I'm taking my own business through. And so it just gives them more and more confidence and excitement of like, yes, we're hitting our goals. Yes, we're moving forward. We're actually, we're going to make this happen. It's like a team effort to do it. And so that's kind of, because it is a team effort, and I want everybody as much as possible, involved in that process and have input and to be able to do it, because, all the ideas that I come up with are generally somebody else's idea anyway. And so I'm just, regurgitating it. But if the whole team collectively can come up with some really cool ideas, like, that's where, good things can happen.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you said there too, that, once you put someone into a role and they become the specialist of that role, they kind of build and grow it. And I know that's one thing I've seen myself whenever I've put somebody in a role, and instead of trying to take it all on my own, like, they tend to do it better than I did. It takes them a minute, but ultimately, because that's the only thing they do, instead of being distracted by 50 other things like I am all day long, they end up doing a better job with it than I did when I was trying to hold on to it. It's like, that surprised me the first few times that happened. And it was like, wow. Now I'm like, let's do that more. The less I do myself, the better. Everything works better.
That was kind of an epiphany for me too, because when I had my media buyer start to do, and she's starting to run all the accounts and stuff like that. I was doing that, and then I was trying to do everything. I was trying to grow a business, and I'm like all over the place, like you're saying. Well, she got in and she was like, hey, she sent an email to the client. It was funny because I was like, why didn't I catch this? She was like, hey, I noticed that you wanted to run this promotion or whatever, but you have these other products in place and you have the price completely wrong on that. And me, I would have just been like, hey, throwing up the ads because I got 100 other things I got to do. But she caught those little things that, like, was like, oh, and so the client was like, holy crap, thanks for catching that. Like, yes, we got to change that real quick. So, don't start the ads yet. Let's change that. And then we can roll with it. So that was kind of cool to see that in action, to be like, okay, like, I feel like I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right things, because I would have never have caught that in the position I am right now.
No, I know a lot of people I've talked to, they're so afraid of that cost of hiring somebody, but almost every time once they do it, they end up growing. And it's mostly because it frees up your time. You know how to sell, you know how to go find people, you know how to grow your business, you know how to do it all. The more of that you can do instead of being in the weeds doing actual work, the faster you grow. But a lot of people don't get that. So I know we're kind of wrapping up our time here. Like, what advice would you have for somebody that's looking at, hiring, adding on people, and looking at actually trying to scale their agency or scale their business in general? Like, what nuggets of wisdom would you have for them?
I would say to jump off the ledge and do it, for one. Don't go too fast, but at the same time, like, go as fast as you can, hire as many people as you can to offload the work, and then have hoops that they have to jump through. I think that's like a cool principle, because everybody that I've brought on, they've had to jump through these hoops and stuff. But jumping through those hoops actually enabled them to get on the same page as far as language and stuff goes, which has made us way more efficient when I am starting to pay them. So knowing that and giving them little challenges and stuff like that, there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. But that's kind of the advice I would have is hire quickly. And if you need to get rid of somebody, like get rid of them quick. Like
Yeah.
just rip the band-aid off and be like, hey, this ain't working out. I've had to do that. I've had to do that once. And I, gave them a bunch of leeway, give them a bunch of time to be able to recoup and being like, hey, we got to get you going. We got to, this has got to happen. Things didn't happen. So it's like, okay, this ain't working out for me. And it didn't seem like it was working out for you either. So, let's just cut ties and kind of go separate ways, so to speak.